Okay, everybody, so my painting is dry. I'm ready to start adding the branches and the flowers. Now, if you want to, you can use a piece of chalk to sketch everything in first and then go back over it with the paint. So if you want to follow along with me with the chalk and then go back over it again with the paint, you can definitely go through this once, rewind it, and then do it again with the paint, because I am just going to go in with the paint. Oh, coming into my brush, my other brush, this guy got a little dirty. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to be using a medium brush this time. And I am going to go ahead, and I'm just going to be using straight up dark brown paint. But if you are doing chalk, anytime I say paint, just do chalk for right now. And I'm going to, so this is going to be over off to the left. And I'm going to be making kind of like a swoopy dot. And then another one just slightly higher. And we can definitely go back over these. And then I'm going to be using my brush the thin way here, not the wide way, but the thin way. And I'm going to go ahead, and I'll adjust that in a minute, but I'm doing this branch here. I want to make sure it kind of goes up a little bit and then curves out, because we want to make sure it fits into our glass jar. And then I'm going to go ahead and do another one here. And then this guy kind of comes up and then swoops that way, like so. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go over all these lines one more time, just with the brown. Now if you did the chalk, I would just wait a second. And the nice thing about the chalk is, if you don't like how something, worked, you can always just wipe it away and try it again. And then if you are doing the chalk and then going back in with the paint, you may have to go over it a couple times just because the chalk might be a little, it's a little dusty, so the paint kind of grasps onto it, so you might need to go over things more than once. That's okay. Alright, and then I'm up here, I'm going to add just another guy there, kind of coming off. Kind of connect it. I'll do another guy here, kind of come in. And then the nice thing about this paint that I'm using, because it's a thinner paint, it's not very opaque, it's more transparent, so it's a little more see-through. So whenever I go on and add more paint to areas, some areas it may look a little lighter, and then some areas it may look darker to give it that three-dimensional look. And then I'll go ahead and I'll just add a couple branches here and there. You notice they're just kind of smaller. Some of them might be longer, some of them might be a little stubbier. Might have one just kind of coming off like that. You can have a lot of these, not a lot of these. But this whole time I have been using my brush the thin way. If you end up with some branches that are a little longer than you anticipated, you can cover it up with a flower or a leaf. Okay. Now that I have this in, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be using my brown paint. Actually, you know what? Nope. I'm not going to. I'm going to hold off on it. So never mind what I just said. I might have another one kind of come there. Feel free to go back over some of these. Make some darker, make some lighter areas on the branches. Now once you are ready there, we're going to rinse our brush out. And if you haven't gotten any water or fresh water, now would be a good time to do that. If you have all your chalk lines in, you can go ahead and rewind and go over this again with the paint if you need to. Or if you just want to watch it again, go ahead. And then once you are to this point, we're going to talk about adding flowers and adding leaves. All right, so for the flowers, as you can see, some are smaller little buds, some are bigger, wider, open flowers. The leaves, some are bigger, some are smaller. But for the flowers, we're going to be using, I got to grab a little more white it looks like, but we're going to be using red and some white. I'm just going to start off with red. I'm using a rinsed out medium brush. And then I'll start with this guy here. I always like starting with this guy. I'm going to go ahead, just kind of put a blob there. And then I'll go ahead and just kind of extend out, making some petals. Always looping back to the center. And then I'll fill in. Now you can also use your small brush if you need to. And then here I'll go ahead and add some white in the center while this is still wet. And then I'll just kind of extend out. Just to give it a good start. And I'll come back to this flower in just a little bit. Let that first coat dry. Now you can definitely go back and forth with these, go over flowers more than once. You don't even have to have a branch, and you could add maybe like a little cute little bud. Those are fun. A cute bud there. You want a lot or maybe just a few. Some of your petals, you might add one here, and then maybe it's just, like a partial view of the flower, so you got three petals. Some of them might only have, let's say here, maybe that one only has two. Now, as you can see, I'm being very loose with these. I am not being super structured with flowers. Can have a little white in there. Yeah, that one's drying already. I'll add a little more white in there. Maybe even add just a little more red to darken some of the areas now that I got a first coat on. But take your time with these. Add a lot of flowers, not a lot of flowers. You could even get really loose with them, like that one. Ooh, getting that one a little crazy. I like it. You could even just go in here, maybe just start by adding. You could even just go right over the branch. I accidentally covered that guy up, but I could always maybe add another one. You accidentally cover up some little tiny branches there by accident. Now Now, if going super loose for you is just way too out of your comfort zone, you could always have your flowers a little more structured. Maybe make a dot. You know, just take your time. Maybe you have some cute little flowers like that. This is your world. If you want to go even darker with the red, maybe mix a little brown in with it. Yeah, get that really nice and dark. And then you could get some really good shadows. Yeah. So adding brown to your red is going to make it a little richer, a little darker in shade. And then as you're working on these, you can also, with the same brush, just rinse it out in between. And now with the green, I will mix a little white with it to start, just because it is really light and see-through when it goes on. But with the leaves, you could maybe have one right next to a flower. As you can see, even adding a little white there. Still a little bit see-through. But you could always go back over it. Now that we got that base on there, you could go back in with a little regular green. Maybe you just got, you know, a couple little squiggly, almost like almond shapes, I guess you could say. Maybe add some highlights. If you want to make a richer, darker green, just like the red, you could add a little brown to it. As you can see, there are a lot of leaves and a lot of flowers. So go ahead and start laying these out. Take your time. And you need to take a break from one. You can move to the other. So if you've been working on a lot of leaves, feel like you need some more flowers, you can start to add more flowers. And vice versa. And I think I'm going to add another largish one as well. As you can see, I'm really just kind of squiggling the paint in there. I'll bring it a little closer so you can kind of see what I've been doing. I will be going back into some of these flowers. Maybe you're thinking, you know what, I just want all of my flowers to be a really light pink. You could do that too. I don't know about you, but I am ready for some spring and some spring flowers for sure. Ooh, nice big leaf there. You know, leaves are like trees. When you paint them, we're pretty sure when you paint a leaf, there's probably one that looks like that somewhere out in the world. You know, you may like a lot of leaves and flowers. You might like just a little, a couple. You know, it just depends on the balance. So go with your gut when you're doing this. Every once in a while, you know, maybe take a step back. Just kind of see maybe where you need to place something. Man, I am definitely at the bottom of this. If I broke your concentration, I'm sorry. I'm getting to the end of that tub of white. Waste not, want not. And then when we add the jar, that's going to be one of our last steps. You might have a wider bell jar, you might have a skinnier one. So don't worry if your jar doesn't look exactly, or your vase doesn't look exactly like mine. I've had wider ones, I've had thinner ones in the past. And I just roll with it. And then if you want to use your smaller brush maybe to get some of these nice fun little kind of like veiny lines in the flowers, feel free. Especially on some of these big ones. As I'm painting, I'm not rinsing my brush out every time I grab paint, but it is starting to get a little goopy in there, so I will wipe it and rinse it every once in a while. Definitely rinse it in between colors. Otherwise you might get a color you don't like. As you go, maybe some of your leaves end up staying lighter, maybe some of them end up being a little darker, maybe some of them are just little flicks of the brush. it's just fun to keep adding and adding. I think I'm going to be stopping here shortly. Otherwise, I'm just going to end up with a big thing of flowers, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I like how my background turned out, so I want to make sure that still shows. If you got a glare too, you can always kind of tip your painting. And add some fun little white highlights in here. You can always go back to. I think I'm going to make some of these just a little more. Yeah, make that a big flower. All right, so I am going to let that dry up there. And if you're still working on flowers and, you know what, I said that and then I want to add more. Okay, I'm stopping. Okay, but if you are still working on flowers, go ahead, keep working, and pause me. I said I'm going to stop and I keep going. And then next thing we're going to do is we're going to finish up the painting. And we're going to go ahead and add our vase. And then add some fun little accents onto our tabletop. So I will see you back here in a minute.